Anybody got any questions? Oh, lots. Tracy, should we start?
Not for...
Gosh, this is a health and safety risk.
Thank you, Julia, for reminding me of what I hope to do on a good day with most people I meet, but I'm not saying I do, but I like to think that I would put all your wisdom into practice. However, what do you put into the space between you and someone else when what you're receiving from the other person is like stonewalling, defensiveness, anger, and it's someone that you have to have a relationship with. You cannot cut them out, but they are not willing to put anything into the relationship or the space, and you're just getting like a brick wall. What would your advice be? As in, is there anything that you can do if someone isn't willing to engage?
Well, there is always something you can do, and it's recognising that if we're having that experience, so if we've got somebody in front of us who is stonewalling and is angry and is whatever else you said, defensive or difficult, that the painful truth, and this isn't something I'm a therapist obviously as well as a teacher of this. Obviously, I would work very gently with somebody wherever they're at, because the truth of it is it's something to do with you, that there is an there's something.
I want you to say that it isn't to do with me.
But when I say it's something to do with you, it's not your fault. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It means that there's somewhere in your energy the availability. So there's somewhere within the in your energy the availability for that kind of abuse. So that kind of anger, that kind of stonewalling, whatever. Now the thing is that's why I think this environment where I'm teaching, it's to recognise that it's probably important, if there's that kind of thing going on in your life, that it would be important to get help, whether that is with a therapist or whether that's with there's so much resource out there. Because to unravel those patterns inside us that have the availability for somebody to treat us badly, that can take a lot of work. So when I say, do the fucking work, it's easier said than done, because often these patterns have got, not necessarily even set up in childhood. We might have come in and we might have had, there may be this ancestral patterning, there's karmic patterning, because they've discovered with psychology that people can be affected up to 12 ancestors back, that whatever's going on. Now that doesn't mean we can't heal, but it can be 12 ancestors back. We have lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. That's why some people like doing past life regression, because they can get some insight into a pattern that's gone on of abuse or whatever. But my belief is, or my experience actually, and what I see in my own life, but what I see in working with people, is that we can actually go through all of that. We don't have to go, oh God, I can't go back 12 generations or even 3, because there's been proven, they did experiments with mice where they traumatized mice, that every time they smelled some cherry blossom, they electrocuted them. Well, not killed them, but made them. And then they found out that the babies, 3 babies down, were traumatized by cherry blossom. So obviously our psychology and our neuroplasticity can get very traumatized and it can come through. However, they've discovered that genetics aren't the thing they thought they were. And there's a guy called Bruce Lipton who's done a lot on epigenetics, which is the biology of belief, which actually means that we can heal these patterns. So it is about recognizing your own life now, seeing where it first came, seeing whether it's obviously not in all your relationships, as you said, seeing the ones it's in, and however hard it is, and it is really, really, really hard, in those situations we can transform, because if you know it's the same person and you know the pattern and it's going on, you will be doing something too. Now you will be, whether that's closing down, whether it's fighting back, whether it's, talking to your friends and upset with them all the time. There will be a part you're playing, whether it's just being, upset every time. Now, I know it's hard. I really know it's really, really hard, but we can transform, because if you know it's coming, you can be prepared in advance. You can do some chanting, get yourself in I take it's someone who's regularly, is it? Yeah. So you can be prepared, and you can say, right, this time I'm going to see whether I can stay at ease. And most people know that the mantra I like to say when you're in a difficult place is the I am where I am, it's okay, because we can only be now. And actually, if we are now, we're not going to have the history of last time they were horrible to us. We're not going to be frightened of what they're going to do in the future. We can absolutely be now, here, and keep our energy clean and clear. And what happens is, if something goes and someone's horrible to us, and this time we don't react, or we are able to just dodge the energy, what happens is we transform it, because so within, so without, everything playing out on the screen of life has something to do with our own patterns and our unconscious, and it's something to do with us, and we transform it from the inside out. So if there's a few set times when this time we don't get angry, we don't get upset, we don't tell our friends, we don't cry, and instead there's kind of nothing, and the person still is chucking the stuff at us, something has to change. It literally has to. And of course, our society, our world, our humans, as I said, we're very vulnerable, and we get very locked in that cycle. But I promise you, it has to change. It can't not. If we change on the inner, it has to change on the outer. It really does, and I recognise it's hard. And that's why, excuse me, sometimes having somebody to support you in it, me, me, no, but that's why it can be helpful. Or just, that's why we're talking, Wendy and Tony had to go because they had to catch a train, because there's lots of train trouble. And Wendy and Tony said, can we sign up for one of your workshops? Because we do the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse all the time. And so sometimes, that's why I'm going to workshops in Amy's lovely space. And we can go deeper into these things. And that's why I am doing more with lots of people, because, I can reach more people, teach more people, and we can do it together. So we're going to do a kind of series. We put it together in the kitchen, Jane and me and Amy. But I hope that, I know that doesn't give an easy answer, but it absolutely, I promise you, you can transform it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so, it's not what I put into the space, it's what I'm doing with myself.
Well, we are putting things into the space, even, sorry. Yeah, so you don't.
So it's not exactly what I can put into the space or what I can do. It's more about what's within myself and what I'm the feeling or the energy that I'm.
And that is going into the space. Yeah. So recognising that we have an energy field. We've got the body we can see, but we've got an energy field going out around us. And they say it can go, quantum physics and things now, spirituality and physics meeting, thankfully. But it can go out to 15 feet around us. So ultimately, if we're feeling churned up and we're feeling upset, it's in our energy field. And therefore we are putting it in the space. So even if we're feeling we're kind of retreated, but where our energy's turbulent, we're putting that in the space, or our energy's upset. So that's why I do recognise this work is exacting, it's hard, but it works. And it is recognising that you can change it, you can change your own experience. And if you practice and practice, and then something happens, and magical things happen, then you're transformed, but actually it transforms the person in front of you too. And they probably disappear. Often what happens. Something happens. They either change or disappear.
Yeah.
That's it's magical. I'm very fortunate that I've done so much work with myself and people over the years that I've seen unbelievable things happen. So keep going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Julia, Just a question really about what stops the change. So mindful that I'm sure everybody here are believers. And I'm a believer. Sorry, I can't sing. But the point being that therefore, and intellectually, sort of head and heart, we sort of absolutely appreciate and think, yeah, I get that. I'm responsible. It's me. It's not the other person. I only have responsibility for myself. I can only change myself. So, in the moment that you're triggered by whatever it might be, if you had to summarise or give your wisdom as to what stops us from sitting here and nodding sagely and wow, I get this again. I honestly get it. Thank you for the reminder. But in the moment of what do you think happens?
I think that ironically we're very attached, or people are very attached to being themselves. So I think that most people are very afraid of dying and very afraid of not existing and not being themselves. So I think at the very, very fundamental level, people are afraid of dying and dying to themselves. So they get very attached, and ironically again, they get attached to all of themselves. So they don't just get attached to their form or their, successes or their things that have gone well or their status or place in society or, being a woman, being a man, being, anything that we identify with. But they get incredibly identified with their wounding. So people get identified with their hurt, and it takes a lot. And ironically again, therapy can imprint it. And I see a lot of that people will go and do some work, and it's helpful to a level because someone's listening to them. But then, of course, they can get attached to the things that have happened to them, the stories, the narratives, and then that deepens it. And then there's a kind of, when you know yourself and you know your kind of patterns, there's a familiarity and there's almost safety in that. So I think that really we have to be prepared to die to ourselves, to the self that's, I always struggle, or I'm the person that, that person's wrong and I'm right, and all those sort of kind of patterns that people talk about. If you think when you hear people chatting, and I find that when I'm running, going past the people walking or whatever, they're always talking about other people, and they're generally talking about them critically and going, this person, and she did this, and she always did that, and she didn't do this, and it happens, you run past another, or I do, and they're doing it. So people are very identified with being right, being there, they're the ones that, something's happening to. So I think that to ultimately really, really be committed to letting that go, you don't know what's the other side. So I think that that's what's distressing to people. What's the other side? Because it does change things, because if you do let go of these things, as I said to Tracy, people can disappear. So people get very locked in patterns of relationships that they value. They may be a bit, troublesome, but they don't want to let them go. And they get locked in jobs that they might not like that much, but they are scared of what might be beyond it. They've been in, long-term situations. I've had people in very long-term situations, whether it's relationships or jobs. They're not right for them, but they can't let go because they're used to the patterns and they're used to the thing that goes round and round and round. And of course, if we do the work, and if we do in that moment where we're triggered, if we actually don't act out of it, now obviously once the energies come up and you're feeling upset or cross, there is a need to clear it, and I say clear it, and that can be by just feeling it's there, by breathing, all manner of things, and sometimes it doesn't go in 10 seconds, it can stay around for days, feelings of upset, charms, all the things I say to help clear it, visualize it as different colours. But when you do that, when it goes, you don't know what the other side is, because there can be completely different landscape in front of you, there can be different people leave your life, suddenly know you've got to leave your job, and people are very afraid of change. Human beings cling, and of course ultimately we're never going to be able to cling. As I said in the talk, eventually we're all going to go, we're going to leave our body, we're going to leave it all behind, and so if we can let go now and let things unfold and see where our life goes, it's fear, isn't it? It's fear. People are afraid. And ultimately, if we can recognise and let go of the fear and fully be committed to clearing the reactivity, who knows? Who knows? Does that answer your question?
Thank you. It's a brilliant answer, and as always, you've given so much more. So thank you. Yeah, it does answer. I suppose I'm still curious. I don't think there's a magic answer as to just in that moment when you're trying to clear and breathe, why it's not easier. Really, I think. Why? I know, perhaps it's a stupid question, but why you don't then do the clearing and the breathing, and then do the intentional dialogue. Go, oh right, okay. So you think I'm a pain in the neck? Tell me a bit more. Why that? It just isn't quite as magical.
Why is training for a marathon not easy?
Yeah.
Why is training for anything we do, anything new? Why we're training to be a lawyer, training to be a, anything we do, it isn't necessarily easy, and we do have to turn up and we do have to do it. We have to discipline ourselves. And, I'm absolutely aware, thank you, my father, who was huge on discipline. And right from 6 years old, I was joining him for exercises in the morning, doing press-ups and squats with my dad, who exercised every morning at 6 until even the month, he was probably doing it the month before he died. But discipline, darling, discipline. And actually, he was right. It's everything's about discipline, and it's about doing it again and again and again and again. And repetition. Periandros, the Greek philosopher, said everything can be achieved through practice, and everything can, but we have to practice, and we have to practice 24/7. So if you're reactive, it's vital to notice the tiny reactions. So if there's one person who you might find difficult, you don't just wait for those reactions, because there will be reactions elsewhere. There will be reactions to the weather, there will be reactions to the traffic jams, there will be reactions to the computer not starting properly. And all of those reactions to no parking places. Sorry, I'm just laughing because one of my clients came having been cross about not being able to find a parking place, and I went, it's a long time ago, he knows who he is, long time ago, and he never looked back. I said, it's the work, the parking, it's all the work. You can't just think not being able to park. Okay, I'm being cross about that. It's all the work, everything. So the thing is, a lot of people think that they're not disciplined about the small stuff, and actually those are the things that put the practices in place. They embed it and embed it and embed it, and every time you are a little bit reactive to anything, it's an arrow to something within you, and it's worth doing. So if you practice and practice and practice, then when it's in a key situation with something that's really important to you, whether it's colleagues or friends or partners, the people who are more in the inner circle, that's the time where you've already practiced, so you're more ready. But there isn't an easy answer, and there isn't a shortcut. I remember one of my friends was very big on hallucinogenics and did a lot of insighty thing into his journey with that. Not this one, another but he's got insight into that as well. But his past. But I said to him, have I missed out not taking drugs? And he said, no, you have to take the long route eventually. You might get insight, and you might see you're not your body, and you might see that you get insight, which can be useful for that, because you can see where the work's needed, so they can be very useful. But you still have to take the long route, and you still have to take the journey until the thing's cleared from you. That answer it? So I'm just saying to Nadia, just giving our his past, he was a raver. He was a raver in the 90s. He used to go in and open up the places, under the arches, probably where like the temple is now. Open up the arches and there'd be nothing, all quiet. And boom, 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 boom. And then the whole thing was happening.
Never by his cover, you never believe that.
And Margaret Thatcher couldn't stop him.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, quiet. Anyone else? It's fine if there's no one else. Oh, there is?
I was going to ask about, it's sort of similar to the first question, but if, like if you're working with someone, like, and you're their kind of, you're sort of in charge of their well-being for the particular time that you're with them, and they are quite clearly stuck in a pattern that's like quite destructive for them.
You're talking about me, or you're talking about anyone?
Anyone. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
If you can see that that's what's happening to them, and you're not, like, I'm not their therapist, and obviously don't want to be, like, because it's not my place to do that for them, but what can you do so that you don't sort of, like you were saying about their energy field sort of messing with you, or like trying to help but not trying to fix the problem? What can you do that sort of protects you from that and also is positive for them?
Okay, so just to let me understand, you mean that if you're, when you say working with someone, you mean you're in a working environment with them? I see, okay. And so you're in a working environment with somebody. Are you directly having to work with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so directly working with someone who is doing cycles of patterns that are difficult and sabotaging perhaps what you might be doing or whatever. Yeah, in a way it's similar to Tracy, because ultimately I think any workplace is going to be an incredibly difficult place. I worked corporately in the 90s. I didn't work corporately. I went into the corporate world as me and would see people, and I recognised that you know, really and truly there was so much you know, dysfunction, and it was like often groups of people, families, you know, places of work, clubs, or any organisation. There's going to be a degree of dysfunction because most people aren't really aware of this work. Most people haven't got the capacity or intent in need. And as I said to Leslie, they believe themselves to be that person. So they believe that their patterns are valid. They believe what they're doing is right. So I think that obviously it is about, again, being able to be as still as possible. Because if you can be as clear as possible and as still as possible, you are going to be in a position where you can effect change, because it's incredible how if our own energy field is clean and clear. So again, it comes back to really and truly trying not to gossip, trying not to talk to other people about the difficult situations, because that is often what goes on. Because there's somebody who's, you know, acting in a way that doesn't help. What often happens is you're going to, not you, but people go and talk to other people, and of course it deepens the cycles. So it's really important, and I'd always say that for couples who are in a difficult place, don't talk to your friends. It's the most worst thing you can do, because friends come through a filter often. They often only are seeing it from their projection, and the whole thing goes out of balance. So I think if you can make sure that, if possible, don't talk negatively about the situation to others, that can be a huge discipline, because that goes on in workplaces all the time. And then it's about, again, as I was saying to Tracy and to Leslie, is to be, this work changes everything. And if you're absolutely vigilant and go, okay, I don't know how, I haven't a clue, Julius, this is going to change things. and you're really, really, really vigilant in that you, every time that person, you know, does the thing that goes in a loop, you don't react and you stay still. For a start, you can then start to be wise, because if their actions are going to impact on you, you can be prepared. Because really and truly, people often don't change, so that you know they're always going to get their report in late, or they're not going to do the thing, or they're going to, you know, do half a job, or they're not going to change, generally. And so it's important to be strategic, so, and be really wise and think, okay, so I know that's not going to happen, so there's no point me getting upset about that. And then once you are more and more wise and you aren't reacting and you're knowing what they're likely to do, it will start to have less of a sabotaging effect on you. And then, depending how closely you're working with these people, you're able to recognise that, again, the intentional dialogue makes massive difference. Because, for instance, if you're going to be someone who's asking them to do something, you can make absolutely sure, generally you ask somebody to do something, I don't know completely the situation, but if you ask someone to do something, you know they're not going to do it, or they're going to do half a job, or they're going to... So you change things and you sit down and have a longer conversation. One of the things that goes wrong in workplaces is people rush, and this kind of work seems like it's a lot of extra time, but it reduces time. Because if you sit with somebody and ask them to do something and then check how they're going to do it, and then they'll tell you and they'll miss out 5 steps, then you tell them what you'd like, and then you ask again how they're going to do it, and then you ask them to check in when they've done it. Now, that may not be your situation at all, but what happens is, whatever the situation, you get into a position where you're more still, where you can have those more creative conversations, and you can slow it down, and you can, because everybody wants to be loved and wants to be heard and wants to be listened. Now, they don't want to be told their patterns, generally. They don't want to be told... They don't want to be told what they're doing. And I would say, I've worked with managers before, and I would always say that it's better me working with the managers to help them manage better, because when I worked corporately, they never had enough money for me to work with everybody in the company. So I would work with the managers and the top people, and I'd help them to manage better. But then it doesn't mean that if I was working with somebody in a team, that I couldn't help them to manage better in those situations, because they could, we're all able to affect change, essentially. So anybody, and sometimes people choose to leave. I mean, the thing with this work is that the more still you get, the more you aren't reacting, the more you're kind of in a more joyful place, and you're in this place where all these random behaviours are going on around, and you're like, oh, but actually you don't particularly mind, but you still might choose to leave, or you might choose to say something, because again, it's not so scary when you're not reactive. You can say incredible things to people. I had the cinema thing, didn't I? I told a few of you of my cinema experience, where this happened a few weeks ago, didn't it? We were in the queue to see Wicked Little Letters, and we were in the popcorn queue, and that was fine, we were there. Anyway, Liam was in front of us, hello Liam, and in came a couple, and they jumped the queue. There they went, and Liam, good on Liam, said to them, Tom knows the story, I told it in the morning, Liam said, oh, excuse me, I think the back of the queue's there. Anyway, they didn't like that at all, there was a lot of it. And so you went forward, and Arnie went forward to support Liam, and said, actually, the queue is at the back.
There is a black eye.
Doesn't need that, the black
Then
eye.
it got worse, and they kind of turned on Anadi. Liam kind of stepped back. It was kind of quite a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the young woman was saying, it's only popcorn, what's the hassle? Only popcorn. Anyway, I decided the time had come. The time had come. So I stepped between Liam and Anadi.
Parted the waves.
Parted the waves. And I looked at a young woman about 30, and I said, this isn't about popcorn. This is about relationship. And it was magical, wasn't it? She just went, and she stepped back, and her boyfriend and her just stepped back. And I went, that's a bit of a good result. Yes, no, not to them. Liam said, oh, well done. I said, oh, well, I'm a relationship person. And he went, oh. So Liam, if you're watching this, I took all my details, I took the whole thing.
Well, so you didn't know Liam?
No, never met Liam. No, Liam just was the person you just
Oh,
went
that's
to
hilarious. That couple definitely needed your card.
But Liam took the
Amazing.
details. So anyway,
Anyway, that's the advice. So in any situation that we're in and someone goes, it's just X, we go, it's definitely not just X. Whatever that is. See if it works.
Well, the thing is, if you're still, and I was completely relaxed, I didn't really mind whether they jumped the queue or didn't. It became a thing. So, have I answered your question?
Basically, next time I'll just tell them it's not about toe doesn't hurt, it's not about your toe. Let them deal with their own,
Well, if they don't get caught in their drama. So I think with people, they'll repeat, scripts. They'll be in dramas, they'll be in this, and they'll have the same thing come in. They'll say the same thing and the same. But again, if you don't get caught in it, and then things can change. And also, what you can do is you can be really conscious with your dialogue. You can be very conscious with what you say, because actually, you don't have to get caught in the loop, because otherwise they're in a psychological drama, because psychological drama is being upset, then having a narrative, so they're upset about their toe, and then they go round it. But then if you join in, you're in their loop with them.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I was saying this to Tom, that down in the change room, in fact, they all work now. There was only one dryer working for a long time. And there was a lot of chat about that, not from me. But every time I went into the changing room, I had to dodge people getting upset about only one dryer. But you can dodge the conversations. You can, you can change the energy. You can just say, oh well, at least there's one. And you can be really conscious of what you're putting into the space. Conscious, always. And I think if my words and thoughts have energy, and therefore if we're always conscious, and I know I'm saying a big ask, but it makes a difference. Then we change everything, because if we go from the position that everybody can hear our thoughts, that would be, the next way to think. To think everybody's hearing everything we think, because they are on a level, because thoughts have energy, they're consciousness in a thought, and and our words, they have a lot of power. So we can make a difference by what we're thinking. If we're not thinking, oh, fucking toe. I've got a lot of that now. Am I allowed? Will YouTube ban me?
And there's that other film, What Women Want. Have you seen that film?
Yes.
It's Michael Douglas, isn't it? And he can literally hear the thoughts of women. And it's killing. You can hear all their thoughts, whether they're talking nice about him or they're judging him. It's called What Women Want?
Yeah.
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. Very funny film.
Well, it's true. Actually, we can all hear each other's thoughts. Actually, they're here, they're in the space. And therefore that can be helpful. Stop thinking things. Stop thinking. So, any more?
I've got one
Oh.
more, actually. Sorry to drag you all the way over here. Thank you, I'll try not to put the microphone in my lovely brownie. This is a deep one, actually. You said this to me on a Zoom call a few weeks ago, and you've said it tonight, about people that are terminal and they find out, you help them find out who they really are. And that's been playing around in my head since you said it a few weeks ago. Can't be a short answer to this, but how on earth do you find that out before you get to the final stages of how do you start the work to find that out? Because I think I define myself as someone who is a writer and who loves running, and those two things define me, but I don't know who I really am beyond that. So where do we start with that process of finding out who we really are, rather than waiting until we are actually on our way out of the...
I think, I guess I wasn't waiting till the end. And some people don't find out when they get to the end, they're hanging on. So they're hanging on to their identification. There will be people who hang on to their routines, hang on to their identification right to the end, and they don't let it go. You can start, one of the ways is it's experiential. It has to be, we have to experience who we are. So we can start with intellectually going, well, we might be defined as a runner, a writer, any of the roles we might be defined by in society. But actually, one of the ways, it's more about experience. So it's important to, obviously, meditation. Now, the thing with meditation is, again, that can be something people do and tick the box and become a meditator. Now, not only a runner and a writer, but a meditator. So I've seen a lot of that now because it's become quite a trendy thing to do. But it is a space where if you spend some time really, all meditation really is not doing anything. It's just sitting and watching and not doing anything. So I know that if you find a practice useful, I think people often do need to have a practice at first where they'll spend 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. And I would suggest more than, I know there's a lot of guided meditations, but again, that can be useful because it can stop the mind thinking about other things. But it still can end up us being still identified with someone who's doing a meditation session. Whereas if you sit and are able to watch the mind, because we're not our mind, we're not our body, and really we need to be able to use the mind as a tool that we switch on and switch off. And I think that the identification with the mind is the biggest thing. So by sitting every day, even if 20 minutes seems too long, at least taking some time to just sit and be with nothing. So no phone, no computer, no nothing at all. And just being. And then what will happen is you can start to drop into the essence of who you are, which hasn't got an identification, which is it's never been born, never will die, the faceless, formless, the face we are before we're born. That essence, that awareness, that's there all the time, and it's here. And in these situations where there's a group of people, often you can feel that presence, but we need to experience it. So practices are useful, so I would suggest that we start by sitting and getting used to that. That's why I know, and chanting can be wonderful. I do a chanting session every Monday on Facebook. But the thing with chanting is that the reverberations in the body really, really can clear away the troubles of the mind. They clear away the tension in the body. They clear away the thoughts that are going on. And what can happen is people drop into that space where there's an expansiveness and an expansive feeling of themselves. So it's experience. I don't think we can do it intellectually. I think we can know we're not. I mean, we could start by knowing we're not all those things. And I do think therapy is a useful thing, because what I've seen is quite a lot of people are keen on being on a spiritual path, and that becomes a thing. But what they've done is skip lots of steps, because we still need to, a lot of the identification, as I was saying to Leslie, is about our wounds and our unresolved stuff, and actually the human journey allows us to properly find out where we're hurt, find out where we're attached. So I do think that it can be, the steps get skipped because people are kind of going, they might have again a hallucinogenic experience and they know they're not their body. They might do a meditative experience where they go, oh, I'm not my body. But what can often happen is then they get into ego and come back and go, oh, I'm now a spiritual being because I've had that experience. But actually it's a constant thing. It's an awareness all the time of the part that is watching, the witnesser within us. So I would suggest, 20 minutes twice a day could be too much time, especially busy lives. So it's more important then to think in terms of, okay, I'm definitely not going to do that. So maybe I at least start the day and I'll just sit, even if it's a minute, even if it's when you're having a coffee, because you can be in a meditative state. Everything can be a meditation. When you're running, instead of being attached to how far or how fast or anything, you can get more into the step. And meditation doesn't have to be sitting, but it has to be that you're experiencing yourself, and therefore you're not the runner, you're not the mind. So you can be watching the thoughts. The thoughts can be like, things floating by. And then throughout the day, it's just coming back into the breath. I mean, even just taking a conscious breath every 20 minutes, every hour, whenever, where you breathe deeply, deeply into the tummy, the kind of Ujjayi yoga breath, where you breathe in and then you breathe out. And then there's that space at the bottom of the breath. And if you can witness that space, that's the space of all pervading truth. That's the space that's the truth of who you are. That's the space, no thing. And just experiencing that, even you start to recognize yourself. And it can't be known in a knowledge way. It can only be known in an experiential way. And then the more you live it, the more you play with the roles. It's fun being a writer or a runner or whatever we might do. But we know we're not a singer, a brilliant genius computery being. All these things, artists, wonderful things that we are. It's fun. It's fun doing that. And why not? Let's go on stage and do the thing. but actually we're not that. You know, that's great, that's energy coming through us. And of course, when we are in the essence of who we are, then it comes back to things coming through us. So our gifts come through us. So we're not kind of, oh God, am I any good? Am I doing this right? And oh, I've got to, you know, that's stressful and gets us caught up. Whereas when it comes through us, then we can go and be on stage, whether that's running, writing, singing, speaking, whatever we might do, all the things we might do. Lots of lovely things. Does that give you an answer?
Yeah, all good.
I'll keep understanding now, see?
Can I ask a little question?
Yeah, you can ask a big question. Nadia's keeping an eye on the timer.
Thank you so much, as always, Julia, for sharing your incredible wisdom and clarity with us. I was very struck by many things you said tonight, but what you said about dodging those social invitations that we all encounter every day to join in the collective story in some way, whether that's complaining or criticising or gossiping. And I notice those moments a lot now, and I do hear you in my head, because you're often in there. And I suppose in that moment I recognise I don't want to join that collective story, but I don't quite know what else to do. So there's a moment of tension that it somehow feels that person wants me to join them in whatever the energy is. And could you say a little bit more about that and how what advice you'd have about navigating those moments?
Yeah, I think firstly, thank you, and this comes through me because I've always had it, and as I said, my life was in chaos at times when I was younger, but this always came through, and I've been in front of people for forever, and this always came through. So I've been, my own life story, which in the end, I will answer your question. in the end, our life story needs to be just a story. I always talk about how, it's the wake of a boat, that our past just goes, and we'll have the story, but there isn't the energy there, and that's part of the work that we were talking about at the beginning, by investigating our wounding and our paradigm, because, then I could tell you my life story, and it's full, but it's not, haven't got the energy with it. But this thing came through me, and I was able to, work with people as a teenager onwards. So thank you, but it just comes through me. And I've worked hard to clear the way. So I suppose that tension you feel is the first thing. So if somebody's having a good old chat about somebody else or the situation in the world or the weather, it's first of all noticing your tension, because that in itself will mean that it's going to mean that you're not going to pause, because often when we're tense we dive back, whether it's answering somebody. I was chatting with someone at supper about send the email when you're cross, don't ever. Don't send a text when you're upset, never, ever send anything when you're not centered, because it never goes well. So it's the tension is the first thing. So even if somebody's having a good old gossip and you're feeling that tension, you're not going to be wise from that place, because it's coming from probably, these tensions can come from wanting to please. They'll come from all sorts of childhood sort of expectations that we want to be liked, we want to be, part of a gang, all those things. So the first thing to work on is the tension, so that if you feel it tensing up in you, take a breath if you can. There's always time. We've actually got all the time in the world. Now I know I say this to people, but it doesn't feel like it. But actually when somebody says something, before we respond, we've actually got limitlessness and time, and we will change our lives by how we respond. So we use that time. So you've actually got that space. You've got all the time in the world to respond. And actually, you know, you can respond with intentional dialogue. So if somebody's being unkind about somebody, you can say, you don't want to necessarily join in, you can say, oh, so you feel that they're doing whatever they're doing. Because it gives you time. It just gives you time. If you're able to say, if somebody's going, they always do this, and they've just done it again, and I'm pissed off with it, blah, 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 you can say, oh, you're feeling upset that they've done that again. It just gives you time. And then the conversation can go in all sorts of ways. And if there's, again, a commitment to never wanting to do it, it doesn't mean we don't observe people. It doesn't mean we might not say, you know, if somebody's saying something and they're being horrible, you can always say, well, you know, your observation of the person. I'm a huge observer of people, and, you know, I can see if somebody's behaving in a certain way. So you can join in and say, yeah, I have noticed that they tend to be, you know, negative, or they tend to be, you know, upset, or whatever it might be with people all the time. So it isn't that we don't have conversations, but we just have more wise ones. Because we're humans, and we will observe other people. We will observe what they're doing, and but it's the energy with which we're doing it. Are we saying they're wrong and they're bad, and they're, you know, it's a very different energy. So I'm not saying we have to suddenly stop talking. I don't know, does that answer you?
Yeah, it really does. It's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, when's the retreat?
I think Jane's in action with it. Well, we haven't got quite to the retreat yet, have we? No.
Quite yet. Yeah, there's going to be one.
Yes, there's going to be one.
Yeah.
There is, because I've done retreats before. We did retreats in Spain, didn't we? How many Zen runners have I got here? I haven't got that many Zen runners here, actually. I've only got 2 Zen runners. Where are the others? There was 10 of us in the mountains in the Alpenharas in 2016, I think it was, wasn't it? So I've run retreats before, so they do, and we did another one in 2018.
Yeah.
So we'll do another, because as I said, I'd like to do more where we gather. Have you got a question? No, I thought you looked like.
No, I'm just waiting to see if I need to answer anything, but I don't need to.
We're also going to do some workshops over the next week. We don't know how many exactly, but to go drill into, because Tony and Wendy, as I said, signed up for the whole 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. But do we drill in and spend a few hours? So we spend, like, you know, an afternoon being able to investigate and practice intentional dialogue, and investigate, you know, the childhood agenda, and investigate the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and investigate patterns and programs. And if we've got, you know, a few hours, we can do some experiential stuff as well, which makes it, you know, more useful, because you practice, basically. So we'll kind of we'll let you know the dates.
Can we add in, and we might need Tom as well, how to develop arms like Julia? Can we add that in?
Fundamentals.
How to have Julia's arms, and I think that would actually help on a lot of things.
You have to start when you're 60 years ago with your father doing press-ups, and then you have to have a big brother who wants to make it harder for you, so he pins you down, and then you're and of course it's a nature and nurture. It's interesting, because I always wanted to do all that, and just wanted to do it, and then my nephew does all that too.
Well, in the blood.
Anything else? Any more? We've gone on and on, haven't I? On and on and on. So is that everybody? I don't know what time it is. What time is it, Andy?
Just after 9:30.
Oh!
Perfect.